one of the 10 best comic books ever written on the face of the planet is JLA number 14. This is not even the end of the Rock of Ages storyline. It goes on another issue, I believe. But this is maybe the penultimate, but it is fantastic. This is one of my favorite comic books ever written on the planet, man. Grant Morrison. This is a comic book. Grant Morrison makes you feel okay with death. This is how important this book is. JLA 14. You see a Earth with a gigantic fire pit of apocalypse on it. So we're clearly, it looks like maybe on the moon. It says 15 years from today, T-minus 1237. And there's a series of narration boxes here. It's narrated by somebody we don't see. This is fantastic storytelling. So good that this guy's going to make you not wince at a character that you should wince at. The narration begins. Called across the infinite, summoned by the source to the place of last battle, I emerge from ultraspace, gliding across the shimmering wave bands of the electromagnetic spectrum, skimming the radio surf in unknown frequencies toward the dying planet Earth. If you're not buying JLA number 14 right now, if you don't already have it, what, that didn't do it for you? I just come to my pants. That was such fantastic narration. There, back to the blue. There, Darkseid, god of apocalypse, has made his throne. He believes he has won this game, but in truth, there can be only one ultimate victor. And where my shadow falls, all things end. So right then and there, the book's called, it's Rock of Ages Part 5, Twilight of the Gods. So, oh my lord, this is the last battle, where my shadow falls, all things end. This is death. What version of death will this be? But it's got to be some form of death, the way it's speaking. T-minus 1236, the zombie factory, which is on the moon. The blue says, here the final hopeless scourgings of conquered humanity are herded into anti-life processors, their minds stripped and replaced by the endless crushing monotone of Darkseid's anti-life equation. And the anti-life equation, I mean, what we're hearing is anti-life is good, anti-life is freedom. I hope it's more intense than that, because that would not convince me, but you don't get convinced when apocalypse takes over, man. You're herded, and they drag mothers away from children. And the blue says, I touch them all with my shadow. All these living dead people. Freedom from thought, freedom from self. There's a mother being separated from a child. She's going, Rachel, no. And a parademon says, vermin, soon it will be only Darkseid's name you cry. I added the effect. I don't know if he said it like that. But the blue says, I touch with my shadow and move on. Zombies. Meanwhile, on Earth, in Las Vegas, T-minus 1234, we see the giant pyramid, and we hear Batman speaking. You say you can return to your own time, prevent the destruction of the Philosopher's Stone, and stop Darkseid's invasion before it begins. So what happens to us? Do we just disappear? Aquaman says, I don't know, maybe, but you won't have spent 15 years here in Desaad's torture chambers. Superman and the others won't have died. And Diana says, if we were in their places, we'd try it, Batman. Aquaman says, Metron's Mobius chair is our only way home. We could still change this, but when our faster-than-light bodies fully condense, we'll be trapped. And then, boom, a boom tube, and everyone goes, whoa. And Diana says, Hera, preserve us. And a giant tube opens, and Batman stands before it, and he says, the boom tube's a direct route to Metron, gentlemen. That's the good news. The bad news is he's on Darkseid's warship. Darkseid thinks we're Desaad. Stay with me. One chance is all we get. Batman has opened the boom tube directly to Darkseid, and he knows that if they're successful, he'll cease to be. But he's going. T-minus 1234. Metropolis. This shit's good, kids. Darkseid is beating on somebody. He says Desaad will be joining us shortly. A parademon. Bam! He's just punching him in the face. And the guy's going, Darkseid, punish me. And Darkseid said, should I save this useless biotrash for him? He's speaking of Metron, who's in his Mobius chair. He's also one of the new gods. He could travel through time and space and whatnot. And Metron gives us a bunch of exposition when he says, time has been engineered in your favor, Darkseid. The Philosopher's Stone was destroyed as you instructed. This world is the result of that action, as you instructed. We do only as your will dictates. And Darkseid says, and my will is absolute. And he picks up the parademon, and the guy's going, yes, die for Darkseid. And Darkseid holds him over a cliff. He says, see what I have made. Imagine what is yet to come. And the parademon's going, let me die for Darkseid. And then Darkseid pitches his ass off the parapet. He says, I take away their confusion and give them obedience. I take away their fear of themselves and give them fear of Darkseid. And the grandmother box is there, this gigantic version of the mother box. A perversion of the mother box. On New Genesis, they had the mother box, which was essentially the internet back in the, when the characters were created. Intelligent technology, sentient almost. And Granny Goodness invaded the mother box and turned it into the grandmother box, a perversion of the grandmother box. And you hear her speaking, unruly children must be taken in hand by their granny. Come to grandmother box, hand me your children to rule with my rod. And Darkseid says, I have liberated them from the chaos of indecision. I have given them one straight path, one clear purpose, one goal, to die for Darkseid. T-minus 1234 Metropolis is the next panel. There's Darkseid's warship hanging above the ruins of Metropolis. There's the LexCorp building tiny in the background, man. Excellent. A shout out to Howard Porter for what great detail. But Metropolis looks like Apocalypse, so it's kind of Metropolix. And the voiceover, the blue, says, closer now to the voice which called me here, the summoner, through whom the eternal source will manifest in all its all-annihilating glory. Earth's last defenders shudder as they pass them like a cold wind. And it's Connor Hawk Green Arrow, Ray Palmer the Atom. Face it, Ray, this is our last stand. All I want is one good shot at Darkseid, just to know I tried it before. And Ray says, Connor, shh, we don't want to miss Batman's signal. Boom. Connor says, sounds like it. To me, they're in. And Ray says, okay, see the bike trooper? He's falling behind. Take him down, Amazo. Everybody go. And then T-minus 1149. We're jumping all over the place. The boom tube has opened, and the doors have opened to the Apocalypse warship. And Darkseid says, Desaad. And then the voiceover, the blue, says, they shudder, referring to the heroes before. He goes, but they do not falter. They know me, but they do not fear my coming. That's Death speaking. So we're no longer called the blue. That's Death speaking. And the boom tube is open. There's Diana. There's the Ragtag Justice League, led by Batman himself. And Desaad is not there. And Darkseid is saying, Desaad, you're late. And who is it? It's Kyle. Says, oh my God, I don't believe we're doing this, Wally. They're all about to face down Darkseid. And the only one who seems to be cool as a cucumber, whipping grenades as he goes, says, I was preparing for your coming, Great One. And those grenades are meant for the grandmother box. And she says, Granny knows best. Granny knows best. Darkseid says, what is this circus? Where is Desaad? And Diana says, I'll hold Darkseid and Granny. I can only guarantee you a minute or two. And then Wally says, this is it, Green Lantern. Aquaman says, Batman, she cannot fight them on her own. Batman says, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, follow me. Metron says, great Darkseid, help me. This fog has been theotropically engineered with Apocalypse technology. Super stochastic effects are creating local zones of increased confusion. And then Batman appears out of nowhere, sneaking up on Metron, which is impossible, and goes, boo. And Metron goes, nah. And Batman says, mind if we talk? Meanwhile, Diana is fighting Darkseid. She says, Darkseid, by all the gods and in my mother's name, I'll make you pay for the pain you've caused. And he says, pain is what makes us strong, and all the gods are dead, Wonder Woman. There is no god but Darkseid, so kneel now or kneel later. In the end, you will kneel. And it's a beautiful over-the-shoulder shot of Darkseid, looking like he's made of solid rock, man. Again, Howard Porter crushes it. Meanwhile, we've got Connor Hawk, Ray Palmer Adam, and the reprogrammed Amazo robot heading in, and Amazo has the abilities of the Justice League. He was a villain of theirs, so, he's got a little piece of every Justice League member in him to some degree. And he's saying, I will clear a path, shooting, beams out of his eyes, stretching, Martian Manhuntering. Also got a lasso, looks like Wonder Woman's lasso, kind of. There's Connor Hawk on one of these hover bikes with Ray with him. He's just firing his arrows, and Ray says, "We're never gonna make it. Connor, look where you're going." Connor Hawk says, "Hey, Amazo synthetically duplicates the powers of the whole JLA. I have a bow and some arrows. Shout at him, huh?" That was a little nice piece of exposition there for those that didn't know what Amazo does. And Ray's saying, yeah, but Amazo, what's happening to Amazo? And then Amazo's going, error alert, viral program invading hard drive, error. And the blue voiceover of death says, mind-eating codes are being broadcast into this one's artificial intelligence. My shadow is on him now. And in one last moment of clarity, he desperately formulates a mathematical abstraction which describes my function. That is a computer faced with death. Grant Morrison, ladies and gentlemen, and Amazo goes down for the last time. Amazo's down. Hold on, Ray, I'm taking us in. And Death says, I circle round. Meanwhile, on Darkseid's warship, T-minus 11 minutes, 12 seconds. Metron says, I can devolve your molecular structure with a word. Batman says, I know, but if you do, there's something you'll never know. Knowledge, Metron. You wanted ultimate knowledge. We offer you one last piece of what we know so that it won't die with our species. Metron says, you have nothing to teach me. That which agrees with the will of Darkseid is superfluous. That which does not agree cannot be true. Batman says, Darkseid is a god, Metron, and so are you, but what's the one thing Darkseid doesn't know? So Metron says to Batman, continue, and Wally is just sitting there going, I've never felt so useless, Kyle. Like they can't do anything. There's nothing for them to do, and Wally particularly is in this old chubby body. Batman says to Metron, gods can't feel, Metron. You don't have a concept for what it is to be human. Become flesh and blood, record what humans feel, if only for a few moments. Unless, of course, you don't have the power to. Metron says, the energy at my disposal is limitless. It would require but a fraction of it to narrow the frequencies of my form to an exact simulation of your biology. I can easily become human. The trap is set. There, I am made flesh and blood. Is this weight? This ceaseless particle movement? Is this all? What is feeling that I should consider it worthy of record? Well, Batman says, BAM! And he punches Evil right in the fucking mouth. Metron, a new god, makes himself flesh for just a moment. Imagine God making himself flesh for just 1 second. Batman punching him in the fucking mouth, man. Munch! Racks him fucking hard. And he goes, it's something like that. And Metron's out cold. Ugh. He punched a new god in the fucking face. Kyle and Wally and Aquaman are talking to the side, saying, we can't trust Metron. Now he's trapped. Batman says, I've just pumped him full of a powerful hypnotic agent. He'll do anything you tell him to do. Go. Wally says, but we can't just leave you and because they're going to use the Wally and Aquaman and Kyle trapped in these weird bodies are going to use Metron to get back to their time. They're out of the time stream, remember. And this Batman we're talking about is the alternate timeline where Darkseid is won because the Philosopher's Stone has been crushed and destroyed. Sounds confusing, but it's poetic. So Wally says, we can't just leave you here with... And Batman says, now, Flash, go. Aquaman says, Batman, if we could help you here. Aquaman says, this world's finished, Arthur. It's for the best. Go. Get to Superman before he destroys the Philosopher's Stone. Undo what happened here. Batman saying, go! And Aquaman saying, Batman, we won't fail you. Now, Darkseid is fighting Wonder Woman. And he's got the full power of the grandmother box about to rear around to blast into her. And he says, kill her, Granny. And Death says, but the living mind that haunts the circuitry of the grandmother box is aware of me. What once was Granny Goodness of Apocalypse, psycho-circuitry rotting in madness. She rotates her boom tube blends. She teleports fire pit energy from the molten core of Apocalypse itself. So she opens up a boob tube and is just gonna, normally people come to this door. She's teleporting fire pit energy straight from Apocalypse. And there's Diana beaten, about to take it all, but she's still fucking standing, bitch. And then Grandmother Box says, bad girl, unruly. And boom, she opens it. And it hits Diana hardcore. Granny is angry. Granny is so angry. And it blasts. The fire pit technology blasts Diana, boom, through a wall, boom, out another room. And the Death voiceover, the blue says, and the first of them falls. Disobedient boy, come to Granny. She's turning around to look at Batman, and Death is saying somewhere in regards to Wonder Woman, there is a final scream of defiance and glory. Oh, shit. And he says, and I pause a moment. In utter respect, a god has fallen. It's Diana. And then Grandmother Box is saying, boy, and then Diana has crashed through the Grandmother Box, destroying it, saying, dark side. And then the voiceover says, the Death voiceover in blue says, Wonder Woman calls me by an old name and speaks it quietly, calmly, as she dies. This is some of the best shit ever put into a comic book, I swear. Batman doing what only Batman can do, whipping a batarang with explosives all the fuck over, just screaming, Diana! He whips this batarang at Darkseid. Darkseid says, this shield is impenetrable. He's got a force field around him. Why have you come here? What did you think you could achieve by this pathetic display? And the parademons have busted into the room, and Batman is surrounded. And he drops at the fallen Diana, and he says, Adam, can you hear me? Darkseid has some kind of personal force field. Do what you can. Then he says to Diana, and Diana is fallen dead next to the Grandmother Box, which is destroyed. She destroyed it. Batman says, Diana, we did it. We did it. The Grandmother Box is lying there, dying as well. Darkseid says, you overcame Desaad. Do I know you? And Batman says with this fucking unnerving grin, everything you know, everything you own, I'm taking it all. Look up. And Death says of Batman, this one sees me and smiles. So as Darkseid is looking up, the moon is exploding, and he says, no, my zombie factory. You see just the slightest concern in his eyes. He doesn't have the normal kind of anger, hate, and I've won. It's a mild surprise. And the Death voiceover in blue says, the moon's features blur. My work is over. Swiftly, before the dust settles. And that awakens all the living zombies on Earth, because there was a beam being transmitted from the moon that kept them under. So they start pulling off their headgear, going, look at the moon. And that includes Orion, who has now gone downstairs in a building. And the Death voiceover says, I circle round and come at last to the summoner. Even shorn of his divinity, I recognize him. It's Orion. Orion has called Death to this place. We are old companions, and Orion has been busy at his art too. The end is here. Orion all this time has been building a bomb, waiting for the return of Darkseid, the eventual return. He's been gone for 15 years. T-minus 4 minutes, 22 seconds. Batman is surrounded by parademons and facing Darkseid by himself. It's Batman, a lone mortal who has survived decades of torture at the hands of Desaad, to beat the ultimate torturer in a battle of wits and take over and call Darkseid himself to Earth for this fucking standoff, for this fight. He stands in front of Darkseid. You're all alone, Darkseid. Your allies have fallen. Your troops have no guidance. Darkseid says, how small you are, yet you have hurt me. I respect that. Therefore, let me show you mercy. Those are merely the finder beams. Next comes the Omega effect. These beams shooting out of Darkseid's eyes are finding Batman. They're touching him. Batman says, you want to know why you're surrounded by all these maggots, Darkseid? Because you did what you said you'd do. You created the world in your image. And what you see in them is your own ugly fang. And then the Omega beams strike Batman and he's gone. And Death says, then he is gone, out of time, out of space, beyond even what gods know. It won't tell you where Batman went, what his ultimate fate was. It was almost as if Grant Morrison left it open, not necessarily saying he was Death, saying beyond even what gods know. Perhaps a bit of foreshadowing for what was to come later on in the future, when Grant Morrison did the, Batman faces Darkseid storyline. I don't know, we'll have to ask him one day. Meanwhile, Darkseid is going nuts, man, just pushing aside these former slaves, going, mindless slaves, pitiful mannequins. Where is Metron? Why was this allowed to occur? I cannot be destroyed. I am in everything. I cannot be stopped. It's like Harvey Weinstein. I cannot be destroyed, but I am in everything. I cannot be stopped. That sounds powerful. And in the ruins of this anthill planet, I will build an empire of order. That is my will. That is the will of Darkseid. And then Death tells us in blue, and so it ends. And that's just as Connor pulls up on one of these bikes. He's still got Ray Palmer, the Atom, with him. And Adam says, flame arrow, Connor. And then Connor says, great idea, Ray. Maybe we can give him a fatal suntan. Remember, this dude has a light source around him, a energy, force field that couldn't be penetrated by Batman's Batarang. And Darkseid says, little men, your strategies mean nothing. Your generations pass before my eyes like cells multiplying and dying on a slide. I am the Alpha. I am the Omega. I am Darkseid. And Connor goes in a whisper. The dialogue has been shrunk just a little bit from the normal size, point size. He goes, my God, he's gigantic. Connor Hawke, remember, is a human being here. This is Green Arrow. Like, this dude's fucking terrified. And Adam goes, just go. You and me, Connor. Who'd have believed it? So Connor's knocking up his arrow. Darkseid turns around. He says, what are you? And then Ray Palmer is launched onto that arrow. He's holding on. He's traveling with the arrow that Connor shot. He goes, I'm Ray Palmer. I'm the Atom. I'm a scientist. And I just realized you can see, which means something can get through your shield. And so the light, the arrow, the flare arrow explodes against Darkseid's force field. And it creates this big light flash. It goes flash, lighting up Darkseid for a moment. And that's when we see Ray traveling in a background of pure energy. And he says, light, meaning Darkseid, something gets through Darkseid's shield. And it's light. And Death, and some of the greatest writing in a comic book, starts talking about the passing of Ray Palmer, the Atom. He says, and I am with him, even in the shadowless chaos of the photon stream, as he super miniaturizes into the micro-infinite and rides the waves of light, down through the evil god's eye and deep into the infernal furnace of Darkseid's colossal brain. Unseen, unsuspected, I come by many roads. Darkseid is saying to Green Arrow, Connor Hawke, Green Arrow, go from here, enjoy your hopeless victories. In the end, you too will serve me. And Connor says, hey, the only way we're going to serve you is medium rare. He's in your head, you big ugly moron. And there's Ray Palmer traveling through Darkseid's brain, going, nice brain, 4 lobes, which one first? And then Darkseid realizes, and he goes, what? No, this is, no. And Ray is just launching fucking laser beam into his brain. He goes, hold that bad thought. And he goes, and Darkseid is essentially being lobotomized by the Atom. The only way you could think to kill Darkseid, Grant Morrison figured it out. Genius. Traveled in on a wave of light that could get through his force field, went into his brain and just fucked it up. So there's the Atom on top of Darkseid's exploding brain. And it said a death narration in blue says, consumed in the eye of the neural storm that devours Darkseid's brain, this one catches sight of me and, like a good scientist, asks me a question. And Death says, my answer is yes. So you gotta assume the question that Ray Palmer, the last thing that Ray Palmer said or went through his mind before he died as he faced death, because that's the idea of all these things, was, are you Death? Because his Death responded, my answer is yes. And there is Darkseid, just standing still, frozen. Connor Hawk says, Ray, you and me, man, we just killed Darkseid. And then Death's blue narration says, my shadow falls across the world. This one feels me close by, stills his mind as he was taught, and prepares to return to the source. My task is all but done. And it's the first time we've seen Death, and it's Death the Black Racer, which is a New Gods character. And it's a dude in a cape. It looks like he's skiing on a Battle of the Network Stars type show, and he's got ski poles. And that was their representation of Death. Death the Black Racer. And thank God they don't lead the comic with it, because you'd never be able to take that voiceover seriously. But you've been enjoying that voiceover, the voiceover of Death, the internal monologue of Death, the whole fucking issue. If you're unfamiliar with where they were going, and I was, bam, when they rock you with the Death the Black Racer, for a second you're like, you're fucking kidding. But you go with it because you're like, that's some fantastic writing. If that's what Death is, so be it. That's what Death is. Grant Morrison was borrowing from the already existing DC universe and the New Gods, and he took this hokey character, man, and made him fucking badass. So T-minus 15 seconds left. Orion is in the basement with the giant machine. And Death says, Orion, once the god of war, does not turn to look at me. He knows my face too well, and my name also. And finally, Orion gives Death its name for us. Death, the Black Racer. In the end, Darkseid has won, Cold One. I have become the destroyer he always said I was. I am truly his son. And Death the Black Racer says, I am not often called upon to cast my shadow across all creation, Orion. What have you there? And Orion says, this Genesis box is programmed to convert the entire universe into pure energy, and then to remake it without Darkseid's taint. I am the last warrior. It seems only fitting that I should strike with the ultimate weapon. The war is over, Orion, Death the Black Racer says. And then at T-minus 0, 0, 0, 0, Death says, and I reach out. It happens very quietly. The Genesis box unmakes the universe with a whisper. And as the last spark goes out in Darkseid's ruined brain, he dimly perceives the face of the only winner of this game. Then he, in his turn, meets the Black Racer. We're all gonna meet the Black Racer, kids. Just make sure you're ready for it. Okay, so 15 years later, the Injustice Gang satellite. This takes us back to the moment earlier in the run where Superman made of pure electron energy. He was blue Superman in those days. He's facing down Lex Luthor, and he's with Batman again, and he says, nice try, Lex. I guarantee you won't be walking out of court with a smile on your face this time. What were you thinking? So we're taken back into that moment in time where Superman destroyed it and the Philosopher's Stone. Lex says, I don't know, Superman. My future's entirely in your hands, obviously. But maybe I was thinking about my little stone there. And then Batman says, the stone's thought-controlled, Superman. And then Superman says he won't get the chance to use it. Whatever this is, I'm destroying it now. And he starts to crush it, meaning if he destroys it again, then we're all doomed to that existence. And that's the end of the issue. I'm not going to tell you what happens, kids. You got to go read it, man. Issue number 15 of JLA. You can go to Comixology and download it if you want, or go to your friendly neighborhood brick-and-mortar comic book store. A little bit of a Batman with me alone, psychotically, at a microphone, listening to me nearly cry over shit written in 4 colors in a comic book. But that's how powerful this is. These are our myths, kids. These are the stories that we look to, build our moral compass to thrill us while teaching us a lesson. And the lesson of that Rock of Ages storyline, as with every Batman story, is To the death, we will fight the scumbags. To the death, we will fight injustice. All the way till the end of time, just to punch evil in its turkey fucking neck. Even if that neck is made of granite and belongs to Darkseid. Batman is a force for good that we all need, kids. Nothing can stop him ever. He'll be with us forever, like the Force.